after my boss said no one cares about your kid's graduation and denied my time off request. I took a photo of him sleeping in his car during lunch and submitted it as part of a time theft audit we'd been forced to attend. HR called him in within 12 minutes. I'm not the kind of guy who looks for trouble. I work hard, I show up on time, and I try to stay out of office politics. I'm 44, live in Spokane, Washington, and I've worked for the same logistics company for over 12 years. My daughter Morgan just graduated high school this past June, and let me tell you, it was one of the proudest days of my life. But it almost didn't happen for me because of a man named Brad Templeton. Brad was my supervisor, and if I had to describe him in one word, it would be smug. He came in about 2 years ago after corporate restructured the whole regional branch. Before that, I had a decent boss, tough but fair. Brad, he was all about metrics, control, and fear. The kind of guy who thought smiling made him weak. Everything was by the book, unless it was his book. He'd do things like pull people into his office for being 3 minutes late, but he'd walk in 20 minutes late with a Starbucks and not say a word. He'd cancel our morning safety briefings if he had a team lead call. But if we missed one, we'd be written up. You get the picture. Back in early May, I put in a formal time-off request to leave by noon on June 9th, Morgan's graduation. I'd asked early, gave a backup for my shift, and even reminded Brad about it twice in meetings. I was more than polite. He said, "Sure thing, will work out." Then came June 6th, 3 days before the graduation. He called me into his office, doors shut, fake smile gone. "Yeah, about that time off. I'm going to have to deny it." I blinked. "What? You already approved. I never signed anything." I stood there stunned. "Brad, it's my daughter's graduation. I already told her I'd be there." He shrugged. "Look, we've got a vendor coming in for the Q2 audit. I need every hand on deck." I could feel my throat tighten. "You said it was fine." Brad leaned back in his chair, laced his fingers behind his head, and smiled like he was enjoying it. "No one cares about your kid's graduation, David. This is business. Don't make it personal." I stared at him. My face burned. My fists clenched onto the table. I didn't say anything. I just nodded and walked out. I went to the break room and sat in silence for 10 minutes. Not angry, numb. It was like he'd taken a sledgehammer to my gut. I called my wife, Heather, and told her. She cried. Morgan cried. I felt like a failure. The day of the graduation came. I worked. I pretended not to look at the clock when it hit noon. I ignored the text from Heather and the photo she sent me of Morgan in her cap and gown. I kept working, like a good little drone. Then 2 days later, Brad forced us all into a mandatory seminar on time theft. That's right, after denying me time to see my only daughter graduate. He sat us all in a freezing conference room to tell us how logging 8 minutes early on lunch or taking a smoke break outside scheduled hours was fraud. He stood in front of the whiteboard, smug as ever, pointing to slides HR had emailed him. If you're not working every second you're on the clock, that's theft. It's stealing from this company. You're lucky we don't prosecute. That word stuck in my head. Stealing. The man who crushed my family's biggest moment was now calling us thieves for standing by the vending machine a minute too long. And then karma handed me the gift of a lifetime. It was the following Monday. I went outside for my regular 1 p.m. break. I walked to the back lot where most of us park. I saw Brad's blue Ford Explorer parked a few rows away, and he was inside it, sleeping. Head back, mouth open, arms crossed, out cold. I just stared. It was like God himself handed me a silver platter. I pulled out my phone, walked slowly toward the car, and took the clearest, most damning photo I've ever taken in my life. Time-stamped. Clear sky. Brad Templeton asleep on the job. I didn't act immediately. I waited because I wanted to make it count. The next morning, I printed the photo on our shared printer. I slid it into an envelope, typed up a short anonymous letter, and dropped it into HR's internal Dropbox with one note. For your new time theft initiative. Supervisor Brad Templeton, Monday 1:06 p.m., sleeping in his vehicle while on the clock. Photos attached. Please investigate fairly. That was at 8:47 a.m. By 9 o'clock, he was called into HR. He didn't return until after lunch. And when he did, his face was beet red and his office door stayed closed the rest of the day. By Friday, a company-wide email came out from corporate. Reminder. All supervisors and employees are held to the same standards regarding time management. Violations will result in disciplinary action regardless of role or tenure. The following Monday, Brad was gone. On leave, they said. But we all knew. He never came back. 2 weeks later, we had a new acting supervisor. A woman named Patrice, internal hire, fair and firm. One of the first things she said to me in private, "I heard what happened with your time off request. That won't happen again." I nodded. And then she handed me a sealed envelope. Inside, a signed backdated approval slip for my daughter's graduation day, filed with HR. She smiled. "We can't undo missing it." But I wanted it on record officially. It wasn't revenge with fireworks. It wasn't dramatic screaming in the parking lot. But it was justice. Brad lost his job for the same exact rule he tried to punish us with. The same audit he weaponized ended up being the thing that destroyed him. My daughter forgave me, eventually. But I'll never forgive Brad for making me miss that moment. I did what I had to do. He took something from me. So I took everything from him. About 3 weeks after Brad vanished from the office, things were finally starting to settle down. Or at least I thought they were. Patrice was doing a solid job. The mood was lighter. People smiled more. We weren't walking on eggshells every time we clocked in. The fear Brad had pumped into our building for 2 years seemed to lift like fog. Then something strange happened. On a Thursday morning, I came in a little early, around 7:15. I liked to beat the traffic and take a few minutes to drink my coffee before the noise started. When I got to my locker, there was a sticky note on it. Yellow square plain. It said, "Careful who you burn." That was it. No name, no initials. Just those 4 words in thick, blocky handwriting. I stood there, holding in my hand, heart pounding. At first, I thought it was some kind of sick joke. Maybe a coworker who liked Brad? Maybe someone who heard whispers and figured it out? But it didn't feel like a joke. It felt like a threat. I didn't show anyone. I tossed it in the trash and tried to go on with my day, but my stomach was tight the whole time. Later that week, I noticed someone had keyed the back of my car. Deep, crude, one long, jagged scrape down the passenger side, right through the paint. I filed a report with building security. They checked the lot camera, only to find that the camera pointing to my section had been temporarily offline for maintenance that night. It was like someone didn't just want to scare me. They wanted me to know I was being watched. And I had a sick feeling I knew who it was. Brad. I'd heard through a friend in accounting that Brad hadn't been officially fired. Yet, he was placed on administrative review pending investigation, while HR sorted through some kind of complaint. That photo of him sleeping was enough to start the fire. But HR had apparently dug deeper and found other things, stuff like misused overtime, unapproved vendor gifts, and a weird pattern of expense reimbursements that didn't quite add up. It wasn't just about me anymore. Brad was under a full internal audit. So why was I the one getting threatened? I didn't say anything for another week. Then Morgan came home from a friend's house one night, shaken. She'd stopped at the gas station near the school. And when she came out of the store, someone had placed a single envelope under her windshield wiper. Inside, a printed photo of me walking into HR with the manila envelope. That photo, the one I submitted. The angle looked like it was taken from the stairwell security cam. Someone had access to it, and now they were using it to scare my daughter. That was the last straw. I brought it to Patrice the next morning. She took one look at it, and her whole face changed. "This isn't okay," she said. "This is crossing a line." She contacted corporate HR. They called me directly within 2 hours. They weren't just investigating Brad anymore. They opened a full internal security probe. Someone inside the building had access to files they weren't supposed to. Someone was leaking internal footage. Things got serious fast. They shut down access to most HR folders. Everyone had to reset passwords. IT ran forensic audits on login logs. And 2 days later, they found it. It wasn't Brad. It was someone in facilities. A guy named Lonnie. He was mid-50s, ran night maintenance, quiet, barely talked to anyone. Turns out he was one of Brad's oldest friends. Worked together back in Tulsa years ago, before Brad got transferred up here and pulled strings to get Lonnie hired when a janitor quit. Lonnie wasn't tech savvy, but he had access to rooms most people didn't. He had security badge clearance. They found out he'd been slipping into the IT room during night shifts, logging into an old machine someone forgot to decommission. and accessing security folders through a shared network drive someone left open by mistake. He was printing footage, making copies, watching people, and he was the one who slid that photo under Morgan's wiper. HR called the cops immediately. He was arrested on the spot for harassment, unauthorized access to confidential systems, and suspected stalking. Brad? They couldn't prove he asked Lonnie to do it. But once the connection was clear, corporate didn't need to wait for more. He was fired officially within the week, blacklisted from the industry. I thought that would be the end of it. But then my wife found out something else. Heather was scrolling through Facebook one night when she saw Brad had made a burner account, using a fake name but with his real photo in a group post. Someone had taken a picture of a flyer he posted in a truck stop south of Boise. It had my name on it, my full name, job title, and the words, snitch, backstabber, cost a man his career, corporate rat. It was stapled to the wall near the restrooms. We were stunned. It was like he was trying to ruin me from the shadows. Still obsessed, still trying to get revenge for the revenge. I never meant to go this far. The worst part? Morgan saw it online too. Her friends showed her. And the shame I felt like I'd brought all this on my family came rushing back. I never meant for things to spiral this way. I just wanted to go to my daughter's graduation. I wanted to let it go. After Lonnie's arrest and Brad's official firing, I told myself it was over. But it wasn't. 2 weeks after Heather found that photo of the truck stop flyer, I got a call at work from Spoken PD. They asked me to come in and give a formal statement. Apparently, Brad had filed a police report against me. He was accusing me of slander and defamation. He claimed I'd faked the photo of him sleeping, manipulated the image, and orchestrated a false campaign to destroy his career. It was insane. I told the officer everything, showed him the original photo, the metadata, even the timestamp on our building's internal systems. It matched perfectly with the clock-in and out records from that day. The officer didn't seem too worried. Honestly, he said, it looks like he's trying to flip the story out of desperation. We've seen this before, but we have to document everything. I asked him if I should be worried. He shrugged. We'll call it harassment, unless he pushes for a civil suit. If he does, then it becomes a legal thing, but the evidence is on your side. Still, I didn't sleep that night. Neither did Heather, especially not after she saw that Brad had posted again, this time on a Reddit thread for wrongfully fired workers. Same fake name, same picture, but this time he named me outright. First name, last initial, our company, even the city. He was trying to turn me into a target, and it worked. I started getting weird messages, not on my phone, on my LinkedIn of all places. Messages like, hope you enjoy ruining lives, Dave. Snitches, get what's coming. Hope your kid's graduation was worth a man's job. They came from blank accounts. No profile photos, no work history, probably all fake, but each one felt like a punch to the gut. Patrice had our company's legal team look into it. They advised me to deactivate my social media and stop engaging. I did, but the damage was spreading. A week later, someone left a 1-star Google review for Heather's small bakery, said she was married to a backstabber, and that she supports corporate rats. We had to shut down the bakery's page temporarily. Morgan started getting stares at school. Her best friend's mom even asked if we were in trouble with the law. It wasn't just me anymore. Brad was trying to ruin my whole family, slowly, surgically, and from the shadows. So I did something I never thought I'd do. I filed for a restraining order, not just for me, but for Heather and Morgan, too. Our lawyer argued that while Brad hadn't come near us in person, his actions online, the flyers, the messages, and the use of our names and business publicly created a hostile and dangerous environment. The judge agreed. Temporary order granted for 90 days. No contact, no public posts, no third-party harassment. It gave us room to breathe. But here's the thing about abusers like Brad. They don't stop when they lose. They just change their angle. About a month after the restraining order was filed, I noticed a car parked across from our house 2 nights in a row. Same beat-up gray Camry. No plates, tinted windows. Third night, it was gone. But the following week, my neighbor caught someone in his backyard, looking over the fence into ours. The guy ran when the porch light flipped on. Couldn't catch him, couldn't ID him, but he left behind something in the grass. A cigarette, but Heather doesn't smoke. I don't smoke. Morgan doesn't either. But Brad does. Always did. Marlboro Reds. I turned it over to the cops, but they couldn't tie it to him without DNA. And unless he broke into the house or physically threatened us, there wasn't much they could do. So we installed cameras, motion sensors, upgraded locks. My brother, who used to work private security, came by and showed me how to set up perimeter alerts. And still, the fear crept in every time the wind rattled the gate. Morgan stopped sleeping in her room. She started sleeping on the couch with the TV on all night. She was scared. We all were. And the guilt? It was crushing me. I started therapy through the company's EAP program. I told the counselor everything. She told me something that stuck. You didn't cause this. He did. You just exposed the truth. People like him unravel when the lies stop working. But that didn't fix it. It didn't make Morgan stop asking, Dad, is Brad going to hurt us? It didn't make Heather stop jumping every time someone knocked on the door. So I started digging, not to get revenge, but to end it. I remembered something Patrice told me offhand months back, that corporate had opened an additional audit into vendor kickbacks tied to Brad. I reached out quietly to a guy I used to work with in accounts payable. He owed me a favor. I asked him if he could check something for me. A week later, he called me back. Turns out Brad had approved over $28,000 in vendor bonuses through a shell company listed under his brother-in-law's name. Payments came quarterly, small enough to fly under the radar. But once corporate got wind of it, they dug deeper. The investigation was still ongoing. Quiet. Legal is keeping it sealed for now. But I knew it was only a matter of time. Brad wasn't just angry because he lost his job. He was terrified because he knew the real storm hadn't hit him yet. He wasn't just facing a career crash. He was facing criminal fraud charges. And if he was desperate now, I had no idea how far he might go when the indictments came. It all came to a head 6 months after Brad was fired. The weather had started to turn cold. Gray skies over Spokane. Everything felt on edge. The fear, the anger, the stress of what we'd lived through for months had settled deep into our bones. Heather was different now. She smiled less. She used to hum when she baked. Now the kitchen was quiet. And Morgan had barely spoken more than a few words to me outside of school-related stuff. She wasn't mad anymore. She was just distant, like something in her had been closed off. The worst part? I understood. Brad had taken so much from us, even after he was gone. I woke up every morning carrying a weight in my chest. I wasn't sleeping much. I had lost 18 pounds since the day he denied my time off. That was the beginning of it all. That one cruel sentence. No one cares about your kid's graduation. He was wrong. I cared. And now I had nothing but guilt. But what I didn't know was that karma had been loading her gun in the background this whole time. It started with a phone call. Corporate legal team reached out. They said the audit was complete. They were forwarding the case to federal authorities. Turns out, Brad didn't just funnel money through his brother-in-law's company. He'd also manipulated 2 contracts, backdated purchase orders, and falsely claimed service bonuses that never existed. The total fraud? Over $78,000. That's federal wire fraud. He was indicted 2 weeks later. It was all over the local news. Former logistics supervisor charged in fraud investigation. Faces up to 10 years. The mugshot made me sick, not because I felt bad for him, but because he still looked smug, even in handcuffs. But it got worse for him. During discovery, prosecutors uncovered emails between Brad and Lonnie. Emails where they planned retaliation. They didn't just want to scare me. They talked about hacking into my HR file, posting my address online, planting things in my locker to get me fired. One line chilled me to the bone. Brad had written, "If I go down, he's not keeping his family clean. I'll wreck his life before I'm done." Those emails were enough to hit Lonnie with additional charges. And they were more than enough for the judge to grant me a permanent restraining order for life. But then came the real breaking point. Brad's wife filed for divorce. The day after the charges dropped, she packed her bags and took their 2 kids. She filed a restraining order of her own. In her court statement, she said he'd become violent, paranoid, and obsessed with ruining my life. She said he'd stopped being a husband or father. He was consumed with revenge against a man who just wanted to see his daughter graduate. That line hit me hard because it was true, and because it came from someone who had to live in his shadow every day. I never expected what came next. One day, Heather came home with Morgan from a school event. She pulled me aside in the kitchen and handed me an envelope. "From Morgan," she said, but she couldn't say it out loud. I opened it. Inside was a single photo, one I'd never seen before. It was me from a distance, walking out of the HR office all those months ago. The angle told me everything. Morgan had taken it, on her own, without me knowing. She had driven to the building after school, parked far away, and waited. Under the photo was a handwritten note. "You didn't miss my graduation. You fought for me. I know that now. I love you, Dad." I cried in that kitchen like a child. All the guilt, the months of fear, the damage. I let it out. She wrapped her arms around me and whispered, "You did the right thing. He deserved all of it." That was the first time in months I could breathe again. 2 months later, I stood in court as the judge sentenced Brad to 5 years in federal prison with 2 years supervised release. Lonnie got 18 months with mandatory psychological counseling. Brad tried to speak during sentencing. He started off confident, then stumbled. His voice cracked. The smugness faded. He broke down crying, talking about how he lost his family, his career, his friends, how one mistake ruined his whole life. But the judge shut him down. "You didn't just make a mistake. You tried to destroy someone's family out of spite. And you turned your own family into collateral." As Brad was led away in cuffs, he looked back, not at me, but toward the gallery, probably hoping his ex-wife or kids were there. They weren't. They were gone. Today, things are different. The company promoted me to logistics lead, not out of pity. Patrice made sure of that. The bakery is back online and stronger than ever. Community rallied around us after the truth came out. Heather even started a Little Justice Cakes line. People love it. Morgan's applying to college now. She wants to study criminal justice. "I want to stop guys like Brad before they start," she said last week. We're healing. It's slow. Some scars don't go away, but we sleep through the night now. No more strange cars. No more whispers. No more notes. Just peace. And a framed photo in my office. One that reminds me what started it all. It's Morgan in her cap and gown. And under it, a quote I added myself. "You didn't miss it. You fought for me."